Thanks very much, Donald, and thanks for your sort of brief and just to the point speech. Thanks very much, and thanks for again coming across from Paris just specifically for the meeting and your reflections as well, and the positive tone that you gave it, in terms of that still people are marching and still it's the exceptional thing in the history of humanity. So thanks very much for that. Maybe I know it's time is too tight, but maybe just a couple of, if there are any burning questions or comments, 1 minute each, or anybody just want to mention anything before the press release or announce or declare a press release on behalf of the people who are here.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes. Yes.
It's my voice.
Yeah.
The root cause of the problem in Egypt is the military. I call them, of course, people call them askari. That's the military elite. From 52, of course, I loved Nasser. I grew up to love him. The media bombarded us with hatred for the Muslim brothers. I didn't know any of them, only after January. I met some of them in my village. I saw them the best. I knew them already. And if you wanted to know the poor, you go to them. They served everybody. None of them was a cheater. They were really great people. So I had to vote for the Muslim brother candidates even without knowing who they are, because of the people on the ground. They are helping, sacrificing everything. But the root cause is the military. I compare them to cancer. The cancer, they are cancer in our army, because I want to distinguish between our army. So my brother was in the army. He's in fact a friend with the chief of staff. Then askar, a military elite. They live a luxurious life. We pay for it. They have the best education. Their sons and daughters have jobs. They get the best health service, schools. They go abroad anywhere, but we don't. We deprive ourselves. Then our army is like a tree growing in us, the people. We are its soil. We provide it with everything. Without us, it dies. But the military are a cancer. That's the military elite, askar. And they are just good. They have got hold of the army itself, using it for its own, and it's dangerous. And it has extended to the other institutions, the judiciary, the police, everything. And they don't want to give up, and they never give up easily. And the only solution is to free the army and the institutions from that cancer. 2 ways. They don't live in freedom. So people, what they're doing in Egypt now is to exercise their freedom. Nobody gives it to them. It's there. They go out, express it peacefully. And they don't live in an environment of peace or democracy or freedom. So extend that. Follow them up everywhere. The people have to go on doing that. On the other side, we have to limit the environment they live in, blood and violence. They know one thing or two things, kill or capture. They're backward. They're not fit for the world at all. What they think of any problem as, it's a military site, you have to occupy it. Kill people in there, capture them, destroy. That's all they can do, nothing else. And they're not fit for the world. They either kill people because it's a cancer. What do you expect? But look, cancer takes long. And it takes a variety of, treatments. And the peaceful treatment is much better than the violent treatment where they grow. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ahmed is a doctor, so he's using the word. Maybe the expression comes from medical background.
Well, I'm a graduate of London University, but not a medical doctor.
No. Obviously, we do, all of us, respect our army, who go in different things. I'm sure that Mr. Ahmed explained that. He explained the concern of just getting in the life of people.
They start first
the main
as
task is
good cells.
Yeah.
And once they taste the luxury of the army, they turn into cancerous cells.
They
won't
be
corrupted.
Yes.
They were corrupted, unfortunately.
Then we need to prevent even the others from being corrupted, from turning into cancerous cells. You had the wife of the judge who asked Sharabi to just release him, because the judge felt trying the judges, independent judges, was a mistake, and he didn't vote for it. And his wife knew what he was doing. And she said, Dr. Shabi said, Hasbi Allah, may God suffice me. And for some religious people, this is something strong. And she wanted her husband, the judge, to ask the Dr. Sharabi, who's the judge, to forgive him. He said no. So we can get the wife of officers, wife of judges, wife of these peoples. There has to be a campaign. People have to be aware of this.
I think you stressed on a very important thing, which is the peaceful sort of way. I think that's
Yeah.
the end of the day. This would be what was mentioned by Nahla as well, that this has been like the longest peaceful way ever, and this is the astonishing thing in this revolution, and this continuous revolution. It continues to be peaceful against oppression and against what we heard from Patrick in terms of forces and so on. And at the same time, the respect of our army as an army, if it does its job to protect the boundaries of the country and so on, but if it's not, shouldn't be politicized anyway. So, just one more here. Just 1 minute, please.
My question is to Mr. Patrick. What is Amnesty International doing at the moment with regards to well-documented human rights violations against detainees of, detained peaceful protesters in prison at the moment? Are they condemning it?
As far as I know, we are bringing those concerns to the attention not only of the Egyptian authorities. Obviously it's very difficult to get them to take action because they are the ones carrying them out, and there's an impunity, system of impunity in place, but to the attention of other members of the international community, other governments. And so through our advocates, through our campaigners, we are trying to bring pressure to bear. We know that it's an extremely difficult situation. I referred in my comments to the fact that the United States, while being critical of some of the human rights abuses that have taken place, have decided to make an ally of the President and to renew military aid. And I think that's a very worrying signal indeed. And I think that sets back the day of justice for Egyptians, including around the issue of detention of prisoners, other human rights violations, including torture of detainees, etc. But we are lobbying and trying to bring that international community to bear. With the situation in Egypt at the moment, you will know this more easily, more readily than we do, how uphill a struggle that is right now to get the international community to actually give it due heed and to seek to bring sufficient pressure to bear to bring change. We find this with very many countries, no matter how despotic the regime, no matter how gross the human rights violations. At times, influential members of the international community decide to make an ally of somebody who should not be an ally, who is an enemy of human rights. That is the difficult world of geopolitics in which we are trying to advance the human rights cause. It's very, very difficult, but I suppose that's what we are trying to do, and documenting it and doing the advocacy and informing people around the world is part of our contribution. And I think it requires the international pressure from outside by ordinary activists, Amnesty members and very, very many others, whether they are Egyptian expats in countries like the UK or Ireland or wherever, or our members throughout the world, trying to bring that sort of pressure to bear and to get their governments to take action. We know that it's very difficult, and right at the moment I think that the picture looks as gloomy as one can imagine. There's just been a very one-sided election process, and it looks like the President is entrenched in power with the support of the military. That is not a unique situation in the world, and we have seen that elsewhere. But we have also seen that change does come in the end, and so I suppose the message is to not give up hope, to continue the peaceful struggle, to bring about change and to make whatever international alliances can be made, and to do this sort of thing that is being done tonight continually, and to multiply out into other pressure. And that change will come. We have seen it in other places where after many decades change has come. I mean, people who've grown up in Northern Ireland like I did, I think I was
bit, I'll take this nothing but decades, hopefully not decades, hopefully maybe less than that, so we're more optimistic about getting it really faster, and we'll continue to have this hope, and we were really determined to have that change happening. Maybe one last burning question or comment?
Yes, I'd like to just talk to Mr. Patrick. As an Egyptian, actually, I am very appreciating the efforts that Amnesty and also the host that invites us to in the Parliament for such conference or a meeting. And this is a kind of a highly sense of humanity or human feelings. As far as the previous question now, this is you can't return as Amnesty or other people's. What do you think the Egyptians outside Egypt, the Egyptians in Egypt are doing their best? They are sacrificing their lives, they are going in the streets, whatever happening to them. But what do you think that the Egyptians outside Egypt can do? It's an example what Dr. Helmy did today, but what do you think, what else that they can do so they can make pressures and can help their peoples in Egypt? Thank you very much.
Just add to that. Not only Egyptians, but other than Egyptians as well, what we can do as well. Please.
I think thanks very much. A few actually, probably non-Egyptian people, I think Turkish and Malaysian and a few others, so, and local people, so I think we have some GPs from the local island here, so as I can see, it's all three people speaking about the same tone, if you like, or the same code. So maybe I'll get that back to Patrick. Maybe I know it's the few different questions, maybe if you like, but I think it's a few practical sort of solutions as well. Or
I mean, we are here this evening in Parliament buildings, the heart of government of Northern Ireland, but there are none of our legislators here, none of our politicians are here to hear the testimony that we have heard from Egyptians who have experienced human rights violations directly. I think that's a pity, and I think perhaps that is the next step, is to build on this evening as a really strong starting point of coming together. There are politicians in this place who are interested, who will be interested, who can be made more interested, and there are also politicians that Northern Ireland sends to Westminster, and there are politicians here with colleagues in the Irish Parliament. And I think what people outside Egypt can do is to try to put pressure on the international community. Again, I reflected in my comments that the European Union sometimes is strong on words but not so strong on actions, and sometimes member states of the European Union may choose to go their own course and actually help to prop up the human rights violations we want to see challenged and eradicated. So it's about, I think, bringing this message from this evening out to the wider community, directly to politicians, I mean, MLAs who sit in this building day in, day out, but also the members of Parliament here and in Dublin, and to try to bring pressure to bear on the Irish government, the UK government, and up the line into the European Union and the United Nations. It feels like a long way away to take all of those steps, and it's difficult, it's slow, and I suppose I would emphasise that one has to be in these things for the long haul, but tonight is a very significant step, I feel, and I think I'm very privileged to be invited to be among you and to hear what you have to say. But let it not be a one-off event, let it be a step towards the next step, and to bring influence to bear on people who really have influence, because we don't have that much influence, they do.
Thanks very much. I think it was precious advice. I think let's make that a start.
Trying to build a coalition from people all over the world against military coups in the world. So that was the start the day before yesterday in Geneva. We had a press conference along with an ex-parliament member, Mr. Hatem Zaazan, and Norman Finkelstein, who is a very good politician, or he teaches politics in Princeton University, and now he's not teaching anymore. He's been his vision concerning the Palestine-Israeli conflict, although he's a Jewish person who had lost his parents or grandparents in the Holocaust. He uses this. It's completely a humanitarian crisis. And also Medea Benjamin, who is a very, very active human rights activist. in the States. And she's now, and she had an incident, she had an incident that happened to her in Egypt when she was passing through to Gaza, and her shoulder got pulled, by police officers, and they deported her to Turkey without even passing through Cairo or getting admitted into the hospitals in Cairo. So she's working in our favor now. So that's what we are trying to do now, is to approach many people who are supporting our cause by forming an international coalition against military coups in the whole world, because there are so many military coups that we didn't realize they were taking place in Africa now, and we didn't hear about them until we had our own coup. And there's one that's starting to get on in Libya, but still it's sometimes on and off. And get those people, help us to embargo this killing government from being received in any of those countries. They cannot represent Egypt in the international community. So we're just working on it.
I think it's very important, I think about getting all three people together from whatever background, not to be selective, as Patrick mentioned. So the justice or the freedom is not a selective process. So despite different ideologies and political agendas, but humanity and human rights are unique, and for a well-known history and civilization contribution to the international free world. However, those violations not only hurt thousands of innocent people and their families, but spoil the reputation of the country, threaten its economy and social stability, and provoke reactions of anger and condemnation from all free people worldwide. We send a strong message here from Northern Ireland tonight to urge the Egyptian authorities to stop all forms of violations of human rights, to ensure release of all innocents who are sitting there behind bars, and to restore all standards of justice, freedom and democracy. We value all statements and actions of support from all community, political and human rights bodies all over the world who are standing firm with the Egyptian people against comments and acts of hatred, sectarianism, racism and community division. Free people in Northern Ireland will continue to work positively with their fellows all over the world to support the Egyptian people until they restore their revolution, freedom, justice and democracy.
Today's meeting was a great meeting. We had Patrick of Amnesty International. He gave a good report about the violations, the gross violations of human rights in Egypt, from the beginning till the end, from July the 3rd until now. And he went across all the descriptions of the minorities, of the protesters in the streets, of the prisons, of the judiciary system and their role, and the injustices committed by the police and complemented by the military to suppress the Egyptians and violate their rights. Violations of rights are at all levels. And Amnesty International has done its job and is doing its job by documenting all these violations and reporting them to the governments concerned and to the bodies concerned, so that something could be done about it. The state of human rights in Egypt is abysmal, is terrible. And the authorities there, who appointed themselves by fear and freak elections, have to do something about it. Democracy, freedom and justice have to be restored to all Egyptians without discriminations. And of course we had other speakers who spoke about their sufferings during the Rab'a dispersion and the Rab'a massacre. And this the Halawa sisters, and their brother is still in jail up till now, without trial, without accusation, without charges at all, which is the worst violation of human rights. And they want their brother out, and they want all the people, the innocent people who have been arrested and behind bars, to be released immediately, because it's their basic right to express themselves, expression of free speech, expression of rights, the right to demonstrate, the right to be heard, should be available for everybody. And this is not the case with the fascist military regime in Egypt right now. The elections were fair elections, freak elections. And we have the lady from France who came especially to speak about her, say, meeting the human rights activists or human rights organizations, and her daughter as well, Nahla, he's not really veiled, and she spoke about her experience in Rab'a and how when she saw her mother, the good woman, attending Rab'a all the time, and she became politicized herself and took part in supporting freedom and justice in Egypt. I hope the military tactics of, say, capture and kill will stop, because they are backward tactics. They increase the demonstrators and people who seek the freedom seekers. They will increase and they'll come out more and more. The more you kill them, the more you capture them, the more they'll come out and insist on their rights. And that's the only gain perhaps the Egyptians have got from the revolutions and from the continued revolution. The break of the fear of barrier. Egyptians will never go back. They have tasted freedom and they continue fighting for it peacefully. And I myself compared the military elite, the askar, to cancer. And that cancer has infected the army and is using it for its own purposes. Yes. Yeah. So we hope. Yeah, we hope that there'll be more activities all over the world. People will get together. Those who are interested in freedom, justice, and democracy will get together and support the rights of the Egyptians for their basic rights, and peacefully. The most important thing is peace, where the military cannot live. Peaceful, democratic means, but not violence. Violence breeds violence. Thank you very much.
It's been a very powerful event here this evening in Belfast, particularly for me from Amnesty International to hear the direct testimony from those who suffered human rights violations, the Hawala sisters, the Nala Nasser, those who have been at the heart of the revolution and understanding the suffering that is going on that they have experienced and they have witnessed, and it's been very, very powerful testimony indeed. And I think the fact that sitting here in 2014 that there are still so many human rights violations ongoing, so many people detained, and we know undergoing torture and now being sentenced in mass trials to death, I think is of huge concern to Amnesty. I think tonight has been an important step in raising awareness within Northern Ireland, and we look forward to doing more work on Egypt and restoring human rights and freedom.